It was 5 years ago next month that the first demonstrations took place in Damascus that would eventually bring the country to a state of civil war. Syrian journalists have been documenting what many still call the revolution, providing the basics of news that Syrians can use, where the front lines have shifted, the effect of the fighting on the price of gasoline, what goods and necessities are in short supply and where to get them, as well as death notices, whose sons and daughters were killed in last night's airstrikes. Some of the most useful Syrian news outlets are now based in southern Turkey, in cities such as Gaziantep and Urfa, beyond the line of fire that can be just a border crossing away. However, that border and a life in exile is no guarantee of protection from a movement such as ISIL that is intolerant of journalists and is willing to kill to get its message across. The Listening Post's Will Young now on some of the Syrian journalists who got out and are sending the news back in.
A weekday morning in Syria. Anyone who needs to make a journey might be advised to tune in to Hawa Smart Radio's daily program, Kif al-Tariq al-Kashir, or How's the Road.
We broadcast a simple yet effective morning program called How's the Road. It alerts people to the most dangerous roads or if new checkpoints have appeared in the area. We tell people where there are skirmishes so people don't use that route. We give people the simple information which is relevant to their lives.
In between power outages, Syrians might tune in to Aleppo Today to get the latest on the war, reports on public services, or to see the daily roll call of the dead.
As a channel, we're not interested in international news. What we care about is news happening locally, in Syria. We focus on the average citizens, those who can't find fuel for heating, those who have no food, those suffering under airstrikes.
في هذا الطفل تتلخص حكاية مئات العائلات في ريف حلب الغربي.
We are also the #1 source for documenting the dead and the martyrs among civilians in Aleppo province. People from Aleppo call us to complain when we do not report on their relatives.
Almost all Syrian alternative media have been working on what's called media services or public information, trying to give information about things that can improve their daily lives. Different prices of basic necessities in different regions. Information about where are the hospitals, where are the doctors.
وريف حماة قام مركز أمراض الدم الوراثية أو ما يعرف بالثلاسيميا.
Many of the media outlets serving Syrians today are based in Gaziantep in southern Turkey, where a quarter of Turkey's nearly 2 million Syrian refugees have found a temporary home. Gaziantep has become a hub for NGOs and civil society groups, and it's also a natural centre for Syrian journalists to maintain links with their homeland.
Gaziantep is one of the most important communication centres for Syrians. It has good facilities and it's close to the Syrian border. We have daily communication with more than 100 reporters spread out over Syria. We have employees who go into Syria every day. It's easy for us to move in and out of Gaziantep.
We left Aleppo primarily for security concerns, as we were being hunted by government forces. Here in Turkey, it's the government's responsibility to protect us. But still, we keep our office address anonymous. No signs, announcements, or anything to reveal our location. That way, we stay under the radar.
Gaziantep is just 4 hours' drive from Raqqa, the city ISIL has declared the capital of its so-called Islamic State. Raqqa was also the birthplace of a group of citizen journalists whose very reason for existing is contained in its name, RBSS. Raqqa is being slaughtered silently.
RBSS is a campaign to document the atrocities committed by ISIL in the city of Raqqa. We started RBSS in 2014, and within 2 weeks, ISIL announced that they would kill anybody that worked for us. ISIL has turned parts of Raqqa into hell, but tries to portray Raqqa as heaven. We publish a parody of the official ISIL magazine aimed at young people. With these simple tools, we've had a positive impact, stopping people joining ISIL.
RBSS, Raqqa is being slaughtered silently. They're very brave people. They have been the only one to work on the violations of ISIS in Raqqa. Now they're in a difficult situation. End of last year, there was 2 journalists from the group who have been beheaded by ISIS. The big change has been the assassination of Naji Jerf. And since then, everything has changed. The people are trying to leave Gaziantep. People don't feel safe anymore. All the journalists feel targeted.
Gaziantep and other cities on the Turkey-Syrian border, such as Urfa, have become a hub for Syrian media organizations. But security is poor. Working in this area has become impossible. There are daily threats. They can get to us from anywhere. We have now left Urfa and Gaziantep, and nobody knows where we are. We work in secret, safe locations that are unknown to others. I've been in Berlin more than a year and a half now. For me, danger is everywhere, even in Germany.
When Syrians rose up against Bashar Assad in 2011, journalists began to contest the government narrative. Now, with the rise of ISIL and a multitude of other militant groups, as well as the involvement of foreign powers, the Syria story has become ever more complex, and the journalism required to tell it has evolved.
I worked at Syrian state TV for around 14 years, but I didn't feel like a real journalist. We couldn't speak unless we got permission from the intelligence services and the Syrian army. So after leaving in 2013, we felt a great need to say things that we couldn't freely say all those years. When I'm on air, I can't be anything but professional. We observe journalistic standards because you can't counter regime misinformation with revolutionary rhetoric. So there's no contradiction between Zoya the activist and Zoya the journalist.
Aleppo Today is an independent channel, but we're definitely in opposition and not with the regime. The old state media was politicized, a mouthpiece for the regime. But there is no point rejecting the regime's propaganda just to create revolutionary propaganda. With the revolution has come the possibility of establishing independent media affiliated with neither the regime nor the opposition.
Before 2011, before the revolution, I was a regular university student. I used to hang out in the cafeteria, and politics never entered my mind. My life was very normal. It was the situation that forced us to get involved in politics and the media, forcing us to become citizen journalists. I don't like to call myself an activist or a journalist. I'm a citizen of Raqqa. I'm Syrian. This is a duty we're performing for our city.
Syrian journalists come with their own personal narratives. Citizen reporters who started out chronicling a revolution now find themselves confronting militants who themselves use the media to achieve their goals. Journalists who once worked for Syria's government have shaken off state censorship and are now telling a different story. If there is a common thread, it's the shared hope that one day they will return and report the Syrian story from Syria.